Welcome to Eureka Street Crypto. This is my anti-professional crypto channel. I'm just a barely sane dude who fell down the cryptocurrency rabbit hole. This channel is my fumbling attempt to communicate myself outside my own head about my journey in the crypto space. It is basically my brain dump. None of this is actual financial advice.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is 12:02 lunchtime in Leander, Texas, broadcasting live with Keith Axline here, and I will introduce you here in a second. This is Eureka Street Crypto. This is my daily crypto video blog, aka Brain Dump, and I talk about all things crypto and things I'm discovering. Do not take anything for fact or financial advice. This is just my opinion, man. And sometimes it's not even my opinion. Sometimes I'm just discovering stuff and being like, whoa, all right. Here's what I immediately think about that, regardless of facts. So anyway, that's what I do. And I usually do it in the morning. But sometimes I like to have guests on. And I've met some really interesting people through my journey in this crypto space. One of those people here is Keith Axline. We met in Denver at the DAO Denver conference, and he's also a part of DAO Planet with me. And I'm sure we'll Journo DAO too. Yeah, and he has his own project as well called Republic.io, which we're going to be talking about today. And it really sparked a lot of questions and curiosity and a lot of stuff I'm really interested in the way that Web3 and data are working together. So I was like, man, I got to have you on. So luckily enough, he was kind enough to come on this little show and kind of explain to me and to you guys exactly what's going on here. So Keith, say hello to the world, and let's hear a little bit about yourself and how you came, as much as you want to dox about yourself and how you came into this space.
Yeah, no problem. And really honored to be here. It's my kind of first outing under the Republic banner, so I appreciate that. And yeah, so I'm kind of all over the place as far as my interests, which I think is why we got along while we were in East Denver. Yeah, I had this decades-long career in media at Wired Magazine and Medium towards the end there. And then it's always kind of a hobbyist developer, and then moved to Portland, Oregon, where there are no real media jobs. And so decided to go full-time development, worked at a consultancy for a while where I got a lot of, it was kind of like boot camp since I'd never really been on like a project. I've just always been freelancing and stuff. And then through that consultancy, I kind of started to grasp the importance of like data collection and data management through some projects like with NOAA and other like government organizations. And it kind of just spiraled into this, platform that everyone could use. And then it became clear to me that like, your average person is sitting on a bunch of data that, given like a purely efficient market, would be like super valuable. And so, yeah, it's just kind of been like my own personal journey of discovery, and Republic is kind of like the product at it's not the end, I'm sure, but like the product right now that I think the world needs as far as data collection and empowering users.
Okay, so a hobbyist developer. Development to me, how do you become a hobbyist developer? I don't understand that, because it seems to me like, what do you just learn some programming languages and then you just say, I'm going to just start learning code, and then you see what happens from there? I mean, what does that look like?
Well, I think it has to be
get into all this stuff.
Yeah, I think it has to be a means to an end. And for whatever reason, like I was super into video games, and so it really started there, like in middle school, high school, with like HyperCard and all these like early programming things, just trying to build like a Street Fighter game, basically. Like, which HyperCard is like ridiculously hard to do that, and especially when you don't know what you're doing. And then, and then I would like join these Diablo guilds. I don't know if you know that video game.
Now we were coding in BASIC and making choose your own adventure games when I was in middle school in computer technology class. I don't know
Right.
how far
Yeah.
back you go, but
No, yeah. I think you're a few years ahead of me, but yeah, the Diablo was like taking up all my time. I was in these guilds and I wanted to set up like a way for people to exchange items. It's basically just a dungeon grind and you like find cool stuff and then you could sell it to other people. So I created like a little bulletin board. It was just like in Microsoft Word when they had like create a web page, whatever, and I was like drawing
yeah.
all this
What was that
stuff.
called? Microsoft Front Page or something?
Yeah, I don't even remember. It took a lot of forms. Nothing took off, but so yeah, it just kind of spiraled from there, and then trying to like uh, play multiplayer Doom with people. I'd literally have my friends like carry their computers over to my house
Oh,
and then like Ethernet, network them all. And so
yeah,
it was always like sitting there trying to figure something out just so we could play the game. But that kind of
yeah.
like eventually led to an interest to solving those problems like at the software level. So
So this is in California, right? And
I actually grew up in Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene, Oregon. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that seems to me like such a you know Silicon Valley kid thing to do. It's
Yeah,
like get together, cypherpunk era, get together, network your computers, and I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I mean it's pretty cool. I mean, we just there weren't many kids where I grew up that would be totally into something like that. So that's really cool that you got to be around stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I was, as far as I know, the only one really.
Yeah,
I've met people from Eugene since then, but
yeah,
I moved down to Santa Cruz for college and then San Francisco for most of my 20s and early 30s career. So
yeah.
I definitely found more people like that in California, and that was pretty cool.
Okay, and then you got into music. I know you were telling me you were, you
Hmm.
know, you have music at the heart of you, is at the core of you in a lot of ways, right?
Hmm. Yeah, my dad was a musician or is a musician. He still is playing in bands, but when I was growing up, he was kind of gently pushing me to play guitar, and I was almost just like didn't want to because he was telling me to. But eventually, like friends were doing it, and then I'm like, "Oh yeah, Dad, can you teach me how to play guitar?" and
Yeah,
and, uh, and then he was like, "If you're smart, you'll learn how to play drums because there's going to be like tons of guitar players, but you'll always be able to be in a band if you can play drums." So I started
yeah,
taking
yeah.
lessons too, and then like we were talking about before, the Tascam 4-track, he had one of those sitting around for his own stuff.
Yeah, this thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
A little US 122 sound card. It's not really a 4-track, but
uh-huh.
yeah. So he
Yeah,
always had some way to record. And yeah.
yeah, and so since I could play drums and guitar, and if you can't tell, I was a bit of a nerd and had a lot of alone time. I
Yeah.
started recording and kind of figuring that stuff out, and that was like a way for me to always be able to create music, even if I couldn't find people to play with. So
Yeah. So in a way, that's kind of like programming. You're putting layer upon layer and just building up on each other. And
yeah.
you can see a lot of musicians and programmers have a lot in common in that way. Well, recording artists, I guess. Okay, so
Mhm.
this led you to San Francisco and to where you started um, basically hobbyist development, and you started
Mhm.
building up a platform, but you also have writing career in there. And so you have writing, music, and programming in there. And all
Yeah.
this is kind of converging to where you are now with this Republic DAO. So tell me a little bit about how you think all those things can kind of converge into the current project.
Yeah, I think the through line only makes sense in retrospect. I don't think I or anyone else would have guessed that this is where that was all building to. But I think I've always had this sense of wanting to make the world better and make it more fair, and so part of that was like with writing and news and editing, I was trying to like highlight, you know, projects and companies that were, in my view, making the world better or like interesting that people should know about.
Okay.
And then it was actually on the way to my first South by Southwest. I joined for Wired, as for a story, I joined a startup bus. Just like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to embed myself on this startup bus. It's like
Startup bus.
yeah, it's like
Cool.
it's a hackathon
Okay.
that takes place like on a bus on the way to South by Southwest. And you basically have to build your like hackathon project on the bus and then present when you get there. And then
So you're riding in a bus from California to Austin,
yeah,
and you have that amount of time to create something?
yeah. And
That's really cool. I've never heard of anything like that.
yeah, it's really cool. They kind of, I think they're still around. They're pretty successful. They branched out to other conferences and other things. But on that bus, I was just reporting about the team. I had to like convince a team to let me on because I didn't really have any skills. I'm like some guy, and everyone's like, it was kind of like being the last kid picked for dodgeball or something. But I made it onto a team, and then while I was, just kind of writing blog posts about what it was like, I just thought like, oh man, I need to be doing that. Like you can just think of something that should exist, and then you can make it happen. And I'm like, instead of writing about all these people, like I need to be doing it. And so that's when I got back from that was still like probably halfway into my editorial career. But
Okay.
when I got back from that, that's when I kind of picked up the programming books again and started, waking up at like 4 a.m. before work to do some programming and just trying to hustle,
Yeah, yeah. So when did you decide that, because your project is surrounding data and data
Mhm.
ownership, and so now we're getting to, the formation of Republic.io and Republic DAO. When did you decide that people owning their data was starting to become kind of an issue?
Um, I think it was when I was seeing those, government organizations, like how much of their decision making was based on this data that was provided just by like average people. So like one project was um, NOAA wants to know like the state of the oceans, so uh, they can advise on like the quota of fish that can be caught or through a season or whatever. And so they're trying to, incentivize fishermen to go out there and like report on what they catch and like what the conditions are and all this stuff. And that sort of dynamic started to bleed out in my mind. I'm like, well, everything's kind of like that, like we're all out doing stuff and people want to know that. And then that's basically what Google's business is. It's like
Yeah,
finding out what we're doing all the time and then making money off of it. And I'm like, well, that's not very fair. Seems like I should just get the money that's valuable. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, well, there should be a marketplace where the people who want to know the things can pay the people who have the data. And that doesn't really exist. So I should, start building that. And maybe these, you know, uh, government organizations and nonprofits could be like some of my first clients. And so
Okay.
it was like a little diversion before I kind of ended up going after like just the average person. What do they need to make this successful,
Yeah, when you were talking about the startup bus and coming out to report on South by Southwest and all that, that's kind of whenever Web 2.0 and Facebook and Google were really still looked upon very positively by a large amount of the population, and
Yeah.
nobody really suspected any, exploitation of data or them becoming, you know, billionaire, trillionaires, or whatever they are,
Hmm.
from your data, and nobody probably ever even thought about, that their data is worth something at that point. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that you picked up on that pretty early, because really it was only 2020 or 2019 when
Mm.
I first even heard of the concept.
Huh. Yeah, I guess this is the first time I'm thinking about this, but I've always kind of been, not participating in those networks just from like the ickiness of it. It was just like, give us access to all your contacts and do all this
Yeah.
stuff. It was kind of like a natural aversion to that. And I remember even pitching somebody I met on the startup bus about just like, can we just get like a box that lives in my house that like, basically has Instagram on it, but is only for, like my friends and family, like only the people that I want to see it. Like, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's stupid. Why would you do that? You gotta build the network. You gotta build the flywheel. You gotta get this. You gotta get that.
Yeah. Like it takes infrastructure. That's what everybody's saying, and the only people that have that infrastructure are Google and Facebook and all those large companies. And I
Yeah.
think that's what was holding back a lot of people. And the first time I honestly heard about any of this stuff was the implementation of Brave browser, and then I started
Mhm.
understanding what Brave browser is about, allowing people to choose whether or not they want to see ads and to be able to, collect the Brave token from that ad. So that
Mhm.
was my first foray into this type of concept.
Well, let me ask you, do you have any sense of what advertising is going to be in the future?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends on whether we go towards decentralization or centralization. And I think we're kind
Mhm.
of at a crux right now. And we're at a crossroads depending on whether or not large centralized entities will win out in this, especially with the metaverse coming in.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what I see is that I've downloaded the app, and the Republic app,
Mhm.
and
Thank you.
yeah, and I mean, it's really user friendly. And what I'm noticing is, and if I'm correct, if I'm incorrect, correct me, but it collects your information that would normally be collected by, I don't know who, like Apple, like like geolocation,
Mhm.
any medical information you have on it, um, I don't know, whatever else, but it collects that and it puts it in kind of a black box. And
Mhm.
then the only way out of that black box of that data being collected is if you get paid for it.
Yeah. The it's a little rudimentary right now, so there aren't a lot of like options available, but the idea is to, you know, collect everything that's possible that's of value, which I think, oh, sorry about the sunlight here.
Oh, yeah. It's a nice day.
There we go. Um, yeah, to collect everything, encrypt it and store it so that, only you have access. And then um, there's only a single license right now that you can kind of view in high level terms. But
Yeah.
then when you choose to share it, then it goes to a stream that's blocked by, unless somebody pays for it, they can't decrypt the stream.
I'm gonna go to this app right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's the app. And so far I haven't
Mhm.
really done jack squat except sit on my butt. But so it hasn't
That's
accrued any, but it
pretty
allows
useful.
you to accrue the data token right there. And I have the sensors turned on, but you can also turn on different ones right there.
Hmm.
And any type of data that your phone would collect, um, this app collects it. What does it kind of collect it before Apple collects it? I mean, how doesn't this run in contradiction to Apple software? And wouldn't Apple be kind of pissed about that? I mean, I don't understand.
Well, that's a good question. I might find out, but
Okay.
theoretically, I'm not doing anything with your data, right? I'm just like giving you the tools to manage it on your own. I actually think that Apple should be doing what I'm doing, but they won't
Yeah.
because they don't. They're not set up that way. They're not.
Okay.
They're not going to like think about making their users money.
Yeah.
Um, but it's basically in parallel. So anything that my app can read, any other app can read too. So it is going to any other app that is listening for that stuff, but at least it's pulling off everything for your own copy. Um, and
Okay.
yeah.
So it puts it into a trusted execution environment, like a black box. So you
Uh,
don't even see the information, and they don't see it, right?
well, not yet. This is purely like raw data. So
Okay.
like the XYZ coordinates of, your sensors that are giving it's kind of gibberish to anyone who doesn't know what they're looking for, and
Yeah.
it needs some processing, which I'm, hoping to do and kind of build a community around
Yeah.
building those insights. But and right now, it's really just an encrypted data store. But I
Uh-huh.
am talking with Genomes DAO about their infrastructure. I know Flow Science, who you had on here, is doing some
Yeah. The
interesting
cannabis
stuff.
genomes DAO. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's still an open question, like what the best balance is, and whether queries need to run within an environment that's protected, or whether there's a case for sending out raw data under a certain license. Um,
Okay.
that's generally like easier and takes less control by the user. The user just has to put a license on it and be like,
Yeah.
obviously anyone can do whatever they want with it once they get it, which people always point out, but it's kind of like, well, that's where we're at right now. People are already like doing it. At least we're asserting some sort of ownership and licensing on top of it so that you do have
Sure.
recourse if and when there are like actual enforcement mechanisms for people who abuse it.
Yeah. So you're not really letting. I mean, okay. So people aren't really selling their data; they're selling the licensing for people to be able to use their data. So that it's kind of a
Mhm.
nuance, but I think it's an important nuance right there.
No, this is a gaping hole in pretty much every uh, data ownership platform that I've seen. Is nobody's really talking about licensing, and why would you? Because it's a nightmare. But
Yeah.
that's pretty much like what needs to be solved
Well,
right now. So,
yeah. I mean, it goes back. I mean, even as a musician, you
Mhm.
probably have dealt with. I mean, I used to run a pirate radio station out of my house, and
Cool.
I would stream on a platform called Live 365,
Mhm.
and for internet radio back when internet radio was really a new concept, and I would have to pay SESAC, ASCAP, and BMI
Mhm.
licensing royalties just to be able to stream music, even though I wasn't really playing any artists that were under that umbrella. But
Hmm.
in order to do so, you had to pay those people off. So, I mean, but the whole idea of licensing is not a new thing, and licensing data that you have and that you want to put out there and have somebody else consume. So, I mean,
Mhm.
could you see new types of licensing structures form around a similar type of concept?
Yeah, now that the app is out there with like, collecting data, we kind of have like the end-to-end flow down with like these limited types of data. I do want to focus on that. Hopefully by the end of the year, have something along those lines where
Yeah.
it also needs to be abstracted away for the user, right? I mean, it's I wouldn't want to wish licensing on anybody, and so it's like I'm gonna get
I
in
would
there.
wish it on the large companies, the large
Well,
corporations. Yeah.
yeah, but then they use it against you. It's like complexity
Fair
always,
enough.
favors the big players, but yeah, just having something like a UX that people understand, and actually, uh, we could say like has consent, because like signing a TOS or something is like
Yeah.
not real consent, but like allowing users to really understand how their data can and is going to be used, and then having them opt in or not based on that. So
Yeah.
an example I give is like I might be open to sharing all my location data for free for like a nonprofit like citizen science or like health research study or something like that. So I could, my license could, say that that's free use, whatever. But then if a company like Google's going to use it to like do traffic analysis and create a product or something, then I can say, oh, well, you have to pay me like X amount, per hour or flat fee or whatever it is, and give those tools to the user and try and make it intuitive of like, well, how much is this worth? And like how much, basically, how much would it upset you if somebody used it this way? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
put a price on that. Like,
I
just
mean,
hike
that's a
the
very
price.
valid point, like what is our price, for somebody
Mhm,
to and it kind of goes into the philosophical realm, like
mhm,
what is your price for privacy?
yeah,
At what point will you sacrifice your privacy for some income?
mhm. And I think the ambiguity of that price is why we haven't been able to apply ownership structures and legal structures that we have for ownership to data up to this point, because not only is it a weird, like, non-static, fungible thing, and it's very ephemeral data, but then the value is even more so. And so until there's an efficient market where you can say like, oh, Google stole $100 from me because I could have gotten $100 over here, uh, with that data, but now it's useless because people are going to Google for the data. Like, until we can make that claim, I
Yeah.
think we're kind of
Okay.
stuck with like these softball, like privacy,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
regulations and stuff.
And that can turn into a litigation nightmare and just go on and on and on. And so what
Yeah.
you're basically doing is you're quantifying the value of data,
Hmm.
in the same way that money quantified the concept of work. I mean, I kind of got
Hmm.
on a philosophical tangent as I was reading some of your blog posts, and your blog posts are amazing, by the way. So go to re-public.io and then go to the blog section. I mean, you can tell Keith is a writer, and he's written for a lot of publications, and he writes very well in a very easily digestible way. So I was able to blow through a lot of these articles. But some of the philosophical questions, and we were talking about quantification of data here, and how work is the quantification and money is the quantification of work. Well, I
Hmm.
was asking, what is money? Well, money equals work, and then work equals creation. Creation equals life. And then it started talking about, well, isn't all this, just basically UBI? Well, UBI is a monetary representation of life. And
Hmm.
so just by living, you're creating, and by creating, you're working. And so this whole idea of, well, UBI just pays people to sit around is not necessarily true, because you're collecting data and everybody has value. And
Hmm.
this has been kind of a common theme in a lot of my shows lately, is trying to emphasize the fact that everybody's special. Like the most basic thing you learn since you're a kid, you're unique and you're special, and you are valuable to somebody.
Yeah.
And it seems that the data that we're producing just by living our daily lives is now we have a net, which is this phone, to be able to collect that data. And
Hmm.
then two, the ability and the platform to be able to quantify and sell that data that you're creating is now becoming possible, when it was just previously being gobbled up.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say, more specifically than just life in general, it's just the human value of that we kind of generate just by, you know, being an agent on this planet, and having the human organism really just needs to know everything, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately. And whatever you want to do, you have to know like the state of the world. And so I
Uh-huh.
feel like we're headed towards just trying to get a perfect view of the world in real time. And humans are like the best sensors that you could imagine. And all you have to do is like give them like food and shelter and a phone, and
Yeah.
they'll do the rest of it. But obviously, like, and this is why I've set up Republic as a DAO. I was trying to do a co-op, or nonprofit or B Corp before. I think a DAO is probably the best model, but you can't get that universal participation if somebody's getting rich off of it, right? Like,
Yeah,
there's always
absolutely.
going to be a holdout crowd. And so to appeal to everybody, like, there has to be something materially in it for them, like,
Yeah.
and it has to be appropriate and proportional to what they need and think are deserved. And so you really need a marketplace where it's like, I don't know, maybe the people who say, oh, I'll never share my data, maybe if you offer them like $1 million, $2 million, like however much it is, if it's worth that much and they're cool with it, then like that's a fair transaction. But right now you get a lot of people saying, oh, I'll never share my data, because they haven't really been offered anything useful or good or worth it. Like, people value their data, like, and privacy and their personality, everything about you. Like, that's hugely valuable to you. You don't want to just like give that
Absolutely.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no real moral structure to it either, so you can't say somebody's good and somebody else is bad. I mean, they all
Yeah.
produce data, so it's not like you're trying to create some moral framework. I mean, my
Mhm.
question though is you're doing all this open source, wanting to create an
Mhm.
open data marketplace, but what happens? And I know there's constantly this dance between open source and closed source and centralization versus decentralization. What if this type of technology comes into the wrong hands and it gets into people and entities that want to create a social credit system and come in and grade you or optimize your behavior to fit a larger norm rather than who you are as an individual?
Mhm. I think that's still a risk. I feel like we're kind of running that experiment in China right now, and they are getting a lot of like efficiencies out of it, as far as like organizing society and enforcing laws and getting everybody to kind of coordinate in a certain way. But I'm not sure that could exist anywhere else. I feel like the cat's already out of the bag with Ethereum and Bitcoin,
Yeah.
like already penetrating, as far as I can tell, like every country on Earth, like maybe shy of a few, but like China did try and shut down Bitcoin, and it barely like
Hmm.
but the price for like a day or something. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
as long as somebody is out there with a computer and access to like the Ethereum virtual machine
Hmm.
and like the archive, you can just boot up a new blockchain. Or I think there it's already to the point where it's more advantageous for centralized actors to get on board and try and find their place in the new order, than it is to try and you know take on the almost impossible task of like trying to shut all this stuff down. Like, it's
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. Like Zuckerberg did with Meta,
Mhm.
rebranding Meta to try to own the metaverse.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, okay, go ahead, name it Meta, but or it's
Yeah, exactly. There's like 10 other metaverses out there, buddy.
yeah.
I mean, wasn't that what happened with the original Windows? The Gates basically trying to own what a lot of people were already kind of doing back then in the
Right,
90s.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
just trying to force Internet Explorer down everybody's
Yeah.
throat.
Yeah.
It's like, you can try, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Fetch AI?
Yeah, I have like this running list of things that like I need to look deeper into that keeps coming up.
Yeah, well, they're using autonomous economic agents, is what they call them, that are basically software installed in your phones with AI that collect people's data in kind of the similar way, along the same
Mhm.
vein of what Republic is doing, but they're implementing AI to help people optimize their travel and all that stuff. So, if say for instance you were driving around a city and you needed to park your car, it would optimize your route in order so you could go, and it would check the availability of parking places and a parking garage A, and then divert you from going to B and get you going into A, and
Nice.
it would give you the fetch token for following the proper directions. um,
Mhm.
so what if you really needed to go to parking lot B though? At first you just wouldn't get those tokens, but at what point does that become like the slippery slope of, oh, well, we're going to take away your tokens for not taking the optimal route?
Yeah. No, it's true. It is a little bit like, anything else like fire or whatever, like it can
Yeah.
it can go both ways. But I think ultimately, I think chaos kind of rewards uh, something that is ultimately like beneficial to people. Even though, like, who knows what the casualties will be, I think we'll end up in a more utopian vision eventually. And so, yeah, it's hard to say like what part of the continuum we're on with that. I'm hoping to, keep us towards, being just helping people achieve their goals rather than trying to manipulate them into an agenda, a pre-existing agenda. And I think, from what I see on the technical side, it's really about that adoption. And I think the power that we have over companies that would want to do that, or organizations that would want to do that, is just if something is an unpleasant experience, people just aren't going to use it. And if you don't get enough people using it, then like you don't have that power. So I think there is a play of just generally we have a say in how these things go. And if it's becomes like, oh wait, am I controlling this or is it controlling me? Then, people are just going to stop using that as long as they have that choice, But
the power of free will, which kind of goes to a more theological question. And so you guys are, as Republic, you guys are a DAO now. So I have a question here by Ahed in the chat. He says, what is a DAO? It's a decentralized autonomous organization. Would you like to maybe help elaborate on what is a DAO and how Republic is acting as a DAO to create this platform?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So we met in Denver, and I traveled there with my mom, and she didn't know anything about crypto or anything. She was just kind of game to go on a trip and check out some cool stuff. And so for her, I was kind of explaining it as just a digital co-op. Like the acronym is really unfortunate because everyone's like, well, what does it stand for? And then you're like, oh, it's a decentralized autonomous organization.
I know, it just sounds so drony. Decentralized autonomous organization.
Yeah. Another one I like is a Facebook group with a wallet, or like it's, or like a subreddit or something like that. It's really just a online community of people who, all agree that like they're interested in this, they're trying to do this, and then brainstorming different ways to do that. And the reason why it's kind of unique to Web3, I think, is because before, if you were going to try and, start a group and then get any sort of finances involved, there'd be a lot of like trust issues, right? Like, who's going to have access to that bank account? And like, what are they doing with the money? And like, why do they need this? And I think blockchain like just obviates that social weirdness where you're just like, well, this is what it is. You can see all the transactions. This is what we're doing. I don't need to control this. We can all control it.
We can all vote on it.
Yeah, we can all vote on it. It's all kind of out there. It reduces the shadiness. Like shadiness can still happen on an interpersonal level, which, people try and equivocate that with like failings of the technology, where it's like, on either end, there's still people. And so like things go wrong. But once it's like, within the purview of the blockchain, you can guarantee that it's going to, transpire a certain way. So, and it's all, and you can see everything. So yeah, that's how I'd explain a DAO. Like, unfortunately right now, it also usually means a Discord server, and which I get why people hate it, but it does provide just like easy ways to voice conference and organize and stuff. So I'm looking forward to like the next better platform that we can move to, but because it's hard. I mean, in DAOs generally, the aim is to be decentralized, but the reality is right now they have a core team that really needs to kind of set the stage of what it's trying to achieve and, the first steps of trying to achieve it. Or else if you just get everybody who's interested in like dinosaurs into a room or something, and it's like nothing's gonna really happen. I mean, but if you like have a core team that's like, oh, we're gonna crowdfund like the a Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton, and like that's what we're gonna do, and this is how we're gonna do it, then that can be a galvanizing like activity or something.
It's interesting. DAOs to me seem like in the past, what DAOs have allowed are blockchain based communities, digital communities, where everything is transparent. And in the past, if you were going to experiment with any sort of society or economy, you would have to change the structure of society, which would cause a lot of bloodshed and violence.
Right.
And the DAO platforms have allowed a way to be able to test out certain philosophies of society, without all that bloodshed and violence. And if you don't like it, you can just leave the DAO.
Yeah. No, I think that's my sort of favorite analogy of blockchains is like nation states, where it's like the gas fees are the taxes, your wallet is like your citizenship, and then your stake or whatever is like your voting right.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Like if in real life, if somebody wants to try out some kind of socialism experiment, then it could really cause a lot of hell for a lot of people who are against it, or just yeah.
right. Oops,
But in a
sorry, I
DAO, you
didn't
can
know what
try
I was
stuff out like
doing.
that 1 week, and see if
I love the experimentation, and that's I'm hoping that Republic can not just be the visualization and collection layer, but also just as an organization be part of that experiment, because I just I have thoughts about how we can do things more efficiently. So
Mhm.
I do.
So I have a question about the data token, a little bit about
Yeah.
the tokenomics, if you will.
Yeah.
So the data token, is this out on the public marketplace, or is this right now?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's not it's not mine or Republic's. It's Streamer is the network that launched it, and they're
okay,
the ones who handle the Republic. Our app uses Streamer, and that's basically distributes the data to people who want to buy it, and then
okay,
if and when they buy it, they handle the stream becomes unencrypted for them, and
mhm.
their payment goes out to everybody who contributed to the data stream. And so Streamer handles all that on its own.
Is that an ERC20 token, or
Uh-huh.
okay? And then all right,
On
interesting.
several chains. I know Polygon, XDAI, or Gnosis, and Ethereum, but I think it's on other chains as well.
Yeah,
And so we're actually operating on XDAI. So when you set up your Republic account, I start a wallet for you, and then you get paid on the XDAI network with the data token.
yeah. I noticed it was really easy to set up a wallet. You just provide an email address, and then it just verifies the email. Then it sets you up with a wallet.
Mhm.
Can somebody go in and get their 24 password or 12 password seed phrase, and and eliminate the association with the email?
I can't eliminate it right now, but that's something I need to do. But you can copy your private key from your settings if you want to take it.
Okay.
You take your wallet elsewhere, and then sorry for the dog, guys.
That's all right.
Mailman's here. And then you can. I want to get it in there pretty soon, where you can just bring your own wallet. But
Yeah.
I think the early users I was talking to and approaching were not like Web3 native, and so it's actually better if it's just like a Web2 sign on for them.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what Flow Science was describing with his platform. They were, they're using Near protocol because of the whole Web3 address domains, and that are a
Mhm.
little easier, and with the email sign up as well, because that's a huge problem. Is a lot of people are adverse to crypto because of the barrier of entry, and so it looks like you
Mhm.
handled that pretty easily, as easy as I was able to sign up.
Yeah, there's still more work to be done on that, but yeah, I just want the ideal scenario is like, people download the app, they say what they want collected, they say how they're comfortable being with it being shared and under what terms, and then they just kind of then they hook up their bank account, and then in 30 minutes or something, money is like,
Yeah.
just going into their bank account, and they don't have to worry about wallets or crypto or anything. That's just like the means to an end to make it all happen fairly and securely.
Yeah. And so now it's just, just propagation, distribution to everybody to get everybody on board and participating in the ecosystem at this point, right? I mean, with some minor tweaks, but yeah.
Yeah, adoption's a big one, but I think part of that story is also an education story
Yeah.
because I think you and I don't realize how far down the path we are, where it's hard to explain to anyone that their data, first, what their data is that's being collected or what's available, like to actually see it. You might tell somebody their location data is being collected, and they're like, I don't care. But then you show them a map of like the last 5 years of where they went, and then they're like, oh,
Yeah.
feels so good. So there's that aspect, and then okay, so then you get them on board with like, oh wow, this is all that's being collected, but who would really want to know that? Like, it's not that valuable. And so then there's a whole cycle of education about like, well, these companies, like their $1 trillion coffers are filled with money made off of your data. You can't, like, your individual data maybe is not worth something on its own, but like grab 1,000 of your friends, and now we're talking, interesting things can be had. So, and then there's that portion, and then you're like, okay, I'm ready. Like, I want to sell my data. And it's like, okay, well, are you comfortable with it being used in like machine learning models? Like, are you comfortable with this? Are you comfortable with that? And they're like, then it's educating people on all the ways that their data is and can be used. And so that's kind of, I thought we were jumping into the marketplace and like getting that price, that we talked about. But now I'm realizing, like, for it really to be universal, we got to go back and just like use, in my mind, use software to kind of like make all those things tangible and effortless to people. So you can come on, you can see, you can get like a visceral idea of everything that you're generating throughout the day, everything that your house is generating, everything that your car is generating, and then have the tools to like understand what that is, see the value in it, and then share it in profitable ways if you choose. It's kind of like digital asset management for your data.
Absolutely.
So I think
it lets you have a little more control over the toggles and switches of your own data. And a lot of people don't see the issue with that. They don't understand the whole concept. I know this isn't privacy software, and it's not a privacy token. You're basically just taking the reins over data that's already being collected on you, correct?
Yeah, and I would argue to people who are concerned with privacy that it's too late. Like, there's no physical way to contain the data that you want to be kept private. Like, everything that can be known about you will be able to be known about you, like, very shortly. Like, even in Denver, we were talking about new things where you can listen to conversations through like light bulbs, and you're going to be able to run machine learning algorithms on like the smallest piece of like evidentiary data, and then be able to recreate like a whole scene. Like, stalkers can look at the reflection of your front door in your eye or something on a Instagram. And it's just, do you really want to try and fight the battle of like keeping it all in, which is, possible? I think we have to move on to, penalizing the people who abuse it, making sure that we have clear ownership rights, asserting like that it originated with you. And to do that, we really need to just start collecting things. Like, I almost feel like a time urgency to start like collecting everything that people are giving off right now, because it's going to be hugely valuable. It only gets more and more valuable over time.
Yeah, it's such a temptation, and I see this a lot in the blockchain space. I'm a libertarian type of guy, and it's really a temptation to go down that Luddite path and be anti-technology once you see something and you get scared of it and you see nothing but dystopia.
Hmm.
And I try to be open-minded and fight that temptation and that urge. I see a lot of technology being created, privacy technology, to try to fight against exactly what you're talking about. But you're taking more of an approach like it's happening anyway. Why don't we learn to basically get on a surfboard and ride that wave instead of try to push against the water?
Yeah, like I keep thinking, imagine if Napster had like actually just gone the route of um, you know, licensing right away, or just acknowledging that like there was a way to share things, and that people just wanted to stream music like
Yeah.
all the time. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at, where the privacy stuff is just making it harder for like the smaller fish to get your stuff,
Hmm.
making it easier for the bigger fish to just monopolize it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where, and
Well,
it's
I mean, like back when I was originally talking about the BMI, SISAC, and ASCAP music licensing, they were licensing for all of music, and if I had any control of that, I would flip the switch on only the songs that would fall under that umbrella, not
yeah,
necessarily, yeah, yes.
and the artists would want that too. They would want,
Yeah.
because then they could like actually get paid for it. So
Uh-huh. Uh,
yeah, there's lots of parallels there.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm over time. I normally go 40 minutes, but this is a huge topic, and I'm really enjoying talking about this stuff with you. You seem like a wealth of knowledge, and you're an amazing writer. So I really suggest you go check out his articles. I had one more question, but unfortunately, this question is going to go really deep down a rabbit hole. He says, "Thank you guys for the great answers. DAO is awesome. I have a follow-up question. Is it possible for a DAO to be decentralized similar to Bitcoin?" And that is a huge question. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if
I,
you could say that in one phrase or less.
I think the one thing I'd say about that is Bitcoin is the most decentralized network. I don't know if any other network is going to catch up to it at this point, just because it's the earliest and most decentralized. Um, so I think it's a spectrum, and I mean the short answer is no. But given enough time, in the fullness of time, I guess
Yeah.
it's possible. If
Well,
Bitcoin,
a lot of people say that DAOs shouldn't be completely decentralized either, that it should
Mhm.
maybe be a distributed autonomous organization rather than a decentralized autonomous organization. Because sometimes you just can't get jack squat done with full decentralization. You know?
Yeah. No, yeah, I think it has to be little pods of like whatever the ideal number of people is, like 12 or whatever, where like
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
number of people you're most efficient working in, then
Hmm.
you should just go off and do your thing under the umbrella of this other thing and kind of report
Absolutely.
back.
Sub DAOs. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, I want to ask you, how can people get a hold of you? How can they learn about your project? And how can they join the DAO and stuff like that?
Yeah, totally. If you're interested in like all the random stuff I'm working on day to day, you can follow me at kaxline. It's just K, my last name, on Twitter. And but then there's Republic DAO Twitter handle, um, for following Republic stuff. And then the website I think is up on the screen, but it's re-public.io. I think the hyphen may come to bite me in the ass, but I think it's important because it's it's significant, like rethinking our
Mm.
our public status and what the public can be. And it's probably something where we're actually opting into sharing our data in various forms.
Yeah, yeah. Hold fast to that. That's a really good way of thinking about that. So, yeah. Thanks a lot, Keith, for jumping on the show. Like I said, this has been a
Thanks, man.
pleasure. I
Oh,
really
yeah,
enjoy
for
this
me
stuff.
too.
All
Yeah,
right. And for those of you in the audience, if you see it on YouTube later, give it a thumbs up or whatever. Those things always help. And yeah, go say hi. All right. Bye.
all right, bye.
Thank you for making it to the end of this program. If you actually like this content, give a thumbs up. And if you want to hear more, just hit the subscribe button. I'm available on YouTube, Odyssey, and BitChute, and on all the major podcasting platforms in audio version. Spotify specifically. If you would like to follow and leave a review, that would help a lot. I am also available on Twitter at EurekaJohn1. That's EUREKA John, JOHN, and the number 1. My DMs are always open. Feel free to shoot me a message. Thanks again.